Rallying chip stocks sending the broader markets into the green today. The moves higher led by AMD, which posted beats on revenue and profits in the second quarter. But you've also got to take a look at Nvidia. That's really driving today's action. Those shares up just around 11%. For more on that, we want to bring in our next guest here. It's Angelo Zeno. He's CFRA Research Senior Equity Analyst. Angelo, it's great to have you here. So I'd love just to get your thoughts on Nvidia, this rotation back into some of these names that had been beaten down. What do you think that upside looks like, and whether or not some of this momentum in the chip names is going to last?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. So as far as kind of, what's going on in the chip space right now, I mean, you kind of got this risk off or rotation away from, kind of the semi-AI infrastructure theme here over the last couple of weeks, as you kind of had that broader rotation theme really start to play out. It's really interesting, kind of the combination of what AMD kind of came out with last night, kind of slightly boosting their GPU data center figure, as well as kind of what Microsoft alluded to more importantly on kind of the data center capex side of things. So we think kind of as you kind of look ahead now, even into 2025, the fear of potentially maybe some of this kind of momentum not lasting, or maybe fear that the revenue trajectory wouldn't be there kind of over the next 12 months or so, I think is kind of now starting to ease, or at least you're starting to see some signs of that today, just given kind of the data center capex number from Microsoft. So at the end of the day, we think it bodes very well from kind of some of the biggest semi names out there, kind of more tilted to AI infrastructure, specifically Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom, Marvell, as well as Micron on the memory side of things.
Angelo, Nvidia always is just so late to the earnings party, right? I'm curious from your perspective, given that we have such a long period of time to go before Nvidia's earnings print comes out, does that make the broader chip sector more vulnerable to a rotation as AMD's earnings from earlier start to feel like more of a past memory as we wait for that next catalyst?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very possible. I mean, when you kind of look at thus far into earnings season across the semiconductor landscape, I'd say, a couple of things that we're starting to see, and it's really kind of super early right now. But when you kind of start thinking about the names that, people we're starting to get excited about, some of those analog plays, right? The Texas Instruments analog devices, on semis, NXPs of the world, those companies are actually kind of alluding towards, a second half recovery that is probably going to not be as strong as maybe some had originally anticipated. And that's coming now, at the same time that you're getting some, pretty good numbers out of AMD. So it'll be interesting to kind of see if this narrative kind of shifts back to AI infrastructure. But that said, I mean, I think you make a valid point in terms of whether that kind of, these gains today can be held. We'll see what some of these kind of other mega cap names, come out with in terms of, capex spend, the likes of Meta tonight, for instance, and whether we see a boost on that side of things, because that probably also continues to help the theme if we were to see that. But I mean, to your point, I mean, we think Nvidia is going to post some great results. We think that is going to be a catalyst for the space, but you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks for that.
Angela, we've also got the Reuters report of the less severe U.S. chip export rules as well. I'm curious from your perspective, how much of that worst case scenario has already been priced into these stocks? And how much of that do you think is factoring in maybe to some of the relief that we're seeing today?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when we kind of look at, some of the concerns from a geopolitical perspective, our view actually, the combination of some of those geopolitical concerns, as well as election uncertainty out there, was going to keep some of these semi names underperforming here over the next 3 to 4 months or so. But we've seen kind of a huge correction, here over the last couple of weeks, to the point where you could probably buy these stocks at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, we think a lot of that bad news has been priced in here. We do expect kind of more choppy action within some of these semi names here over the next couple of months, given that there is still uncertainty on the geopolitical side of things. But nonetheless, I mean, some of the news that we've heard today, definitely a great positive sign for ASML, which is absolutely a huge name, the biggest name from a market cap perspective on the semi-equipped side of things.
For investors, Angela, who might be listening to this, and despite the downward pressure that we've seen in Nvidia, it's still just a little bit too expensive for them. What would you recommend that they look at if they want to get into the chip sector, but they don't necessarily have the capital needed to get in on a name like Nvidia? Are there any kind of pick and shovel plays that you are looking at that we maybe don't talk about as the big heavyweight names as often as we maybe should?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. We continue to like the Nvidia play out there from a valuation perspective. We actually think it's pretty enticing here on the 25% plus pullback that you had seen here in recent weeks. But that said, I mean, a name like Marvell is a name that we continue to like a lot. We have a strong buy recommendation. They've continued to at least underperform on a relative basis to some of these AI themes out there, more of a kind of a junior version to what we see out of Broadcom, but they've really been hit from some of the cyclical downturns, in non-AI segments of the market. That has now kind of really played itself out, and as long as that AI momentum can continue on the Marvell side of things, we think that name should start to work a little bit better here. So that is a name that we continue to like, and I think kind of when you look at Micron here, I think that name has really kind of been beaten to a pulp here. I know there's some concerns out there about capacity expansion on the memory side of things, but we do think things remain extremely tight on the memory side of things going into 2025. And when you kind of look at the valuation at this point in time, we think it's extremely enticing.
All right, Angela, thanks so much for joining us this morning on this big tech rally driven by none other than Nvidia for the morning. Thank you so much.